In this presentation, we'll be looking at how movement of objects with chi is related to static electricity. I'm trying to figure out what subtle chi energy is. I have hybrid crystal wands that can be felt by about 50% of the population as subtle chi energy based on tests on about 60 to 70 subjects. I've run some simple experiments to see if there is any correlation to static electric energy. Statically charged items feel different than the wands. Wands have a more internal, inside the muscle, and directed feeling than the static electric items, balloons, glass, Van de Graaf generator. Input would be appreciated with respect to the following. Thanks in advance. Here we see a graphite rod and a handheld Van de Graaf generator. The Van de Graaf generator, from a standard physics model perspective, puts out a static electric field. The generated field hooks onto the rod, attracts it. A hand flick of the generator will then send the rod spinning. This is an electric field effect from the perspective of the standard physics model. Some say that the glass should be a barrier. My first question, all my questions are highlighted with a red question mark in bold and a number associated with it. Is this what the standard physics model says, that the glass should be a barrier? Here we see a video of the Van de Graaf generator attracting the graphite rod, and then a hand flick spinning the graphite rod, and then the rod, because the string it's hanging from has been twisted around, the graphite rod twists back. Now this experiment was run with the rod both in a glass container and a plastic container. The plastic container, the rod actually spins better. For this specific experiment, it doesn't matter that much because it spins very well in both environments. But for some of the other experiments, some of the other things that are used to spin the rod don't spin it quite as well. So the plastic container is the better container to spin it in to see the effects. Here we see the graphite rod and magnets attempting to attract it with no success. And that's whether the magnets are held either horizontally or vertically. The magnetic field put out by the magnets is much stronger than the magnetic field put out by the Van de Graaf generator, as can be seen via the measurement by a milligauss meter. In this video, we see the magnets having no effect, as described in the previous slide, and also we see a measurement of the magnetic field put out by the magnets and also being put out by the Van de Graaf generator, and seeing the difference. Here we see the graphite rod and a balloon. The balloon has been charged by rubbing against a glass. The balloon will spin the rod just like the Van der Graaf generator. The balloon is supposed to have a triboelectric negative charge. Here we see the triboelectric negatively charged balloon spinning the graphite rod, similar to how the Van der Graaf generator was attaching to and then spinning the graphite rod. Here we see the graphite rod and a glass. The glass has been charged by rubbing against a balloon. It too will move the rod. The glass is supposed to have a triboelectric positive charge. The glass is having a little more difficulty in moving the rod. It moves it but isn't able to get it to spin. And here we see the video of the glass moving the graphite rod. None too well. Here we see the graphite rod and a glass plus a base. The base is made up of 8 capacitors and 1 crystal ball, small one. Crystals and capacitors are supposed to have 0 point subtle key chi prana energy. And with the base, the glass is actually able to spin the graphite rod much better. So this is my second question here. What does the standard model say about why the capacitor and crystal base have such a significant effect on the effectiveness of the glass in spinning the graphite rod. Is it the humidity, ionization effect? Here we see a diagram of the capacitor crystal base. This view is from looking down upon the base from above. In this video, we can see that we get a nice spin of the graphite rod by using the glass and the capacitor crystal base. Without the capacitor crystal base, we're able to just basically get a small movement from the graphite rod, as you could see in the previous video. Here we come up to my third question. Why do both the balloon and glass attract the rod? From a standard physics perspective, or standard physics model perspective, the balloon is taking electrons from the glass when rubbing occurs. Protons have mass while electrons have almost none. They're about 2,000 times less the amount of mass. The rod's protons are attracted to the balloon's excess electrons. Thus, it should be attracted. Whereas the rod's protons would be repulsed by the glass's excess protons. Why is the glass not repelled as opposed to being attracted as can be seen in the video? The standard model appears to imply that the balloon and the glass should react differently. What am I missing? Again, thanks for any responses to these questions. We finally come to the graphite rod and the crystal wands. The crystal wands are supposedly a key effect. They have capacitors, crystals, copper, wood, magnets, all things that supposedly have a key effect. From a key practitioner perspective, the effect, the feeling is pretty much the same as when key is being projected, or when you're using your hand to generate some type of key energy. The effect is very, very similar to the feeling that people have when the crystal wand and the key projected from a hand. The feeling is very much the same. And this is based upon responses by about 6 dozen or so different subjects. Of course, some of the subjects didn't feel anything, but the majority of them did. One note to make here is that the key wands were not always able to move the graphite rods. The only way to ensure in the set of experiments that were run that the graphite rods did show some movement was to have run the Van der Graaf generator experiment beforehand. So there appears that there's some type of ionization or some other type of effect occurring to the space, whether it's the air or the plastic container or the rod itself, that there's something happening with the space to make the graphite rod more susceptible to movement via the crystal wand. Here we see the crystal wands, a group of them, I believe 4, move ever so slightly, moving the graphite rod. Pay particular attention to when there's a little bit of a fling. Note that there is a cover on the plastic container. The cover is holding the graphite rod. So the wind is pretty much discounted because you can move your hand and there's no effect there. So it's pretty much the fling. The crystal wands are having effect, but it's relatively small. What's interesting is that when subjects are given both the crystal wands and the Van de Graaff generator, both of them can be felt, by people who are sensitive on their hands, particularly if you've got you're doing it on the back of your arm and you've got hair there. It attracts, and there's a lot of discharging little shocks there. So the Van de Graaff generator can be felt in one way, but the crystal wands are usually felt more strongly and more directed, so does appear to be a slightly different effect, but there does seem to be some correlation. We also ran the experiment with the graphite rod and the crystal wand with a capacitor crystal base, and as with the glass, we were able to see more of an effect, although it's not as pronounced an increase as was seen with the glass. And here we see the video of the crystal wands and the graphite rod with the capacitor crystal base. At the very end of this video, you'll see a zoom in on the base itself, so you can get a better idea of what it actually is. Relatively simple, very small crystal ball, and 8 capacitors. Instead of using a graphite rod suspended via a string, some experimenters use small pieces of paper suspended on top of a pin, and they've had similar effects from the perspective of Ki, subtle, Chi energy, Prana energy. Paper is supposed to be an insulator, while graphite is a conductor. Same effects are seen. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be a difference in what's observed or not. Some energy workers can move the paper, or sometimes it's aluminum foil, just with their hands. Some can even discharge electricity to properly prepared materials. Those people who've been studying Qigong or Qi for long periods of time. I've talked with people who have observed this type of phenomenon. In addition, water behaves similar to the graphite. When there's a trickle of water or a little stream of water going down from a faucet or another item, both glass and balloon will attract the water, as will the Van de Graaff generator. Again, the question is why are the glass and balloon both attracting the water? We finally come to my bigger questions. What is the energy produced from rubbing? Balloon, glass, Van de Graaff generator. Is it only electron transfer, or is another effect also occurring? The standard physics model, according to some, I've seen different interpretations in different textbooks and production material and scientific materials, says that magnetism is associated with spin precession of electrons. Does the static electric field, or what is produced by rubbing, have a correlation with spin or precession of atoms, nuclei, protons, neutrons, electrons, or other elements, or other particles?